Yeah. So yeah, like you said, we will be moving on to our next series here very, very shortly, which I believe is Method Triforce versus Unitas
Yes,
Black.
it is.
I'm super excited for that series. Of course, Method Triforce being the two-time back-to-back 2015, 2016 BlizzCon Arena World Champions.
Yeah, it's great. We have a Hall
Did
of
you have
Fame
to
here.
say it so dramatically?
Oh, absolutely.
I just had to throw a little bit of disrespect in there.
Oh.
Yeah, and so anyway, the Hall of Fame upstairs where we're at the new Blizzard Studios, there's actually, we have pictures of all the past, some of the past winners for BlizzCon, and it's funny seeing two of them side by side of their pictures, year after year. So it's really great. Everyone is counting this team as like the favorite going into it. They've got the experience, they've got the roster. They always seem to win. Like their Method Triforce is just so good, and every single team is. I mean, from talking to Method Triforce, it didn't seem they were as confident as the other teams were, as much as the other teams were scared of them. Basically, they were saying like, this is really anyone's tournament. We hear that a lot from players, but they were saying like the difference between the top teams right now in this tournament is probably 5%. It's extremely close.
It's funny, Laura, that you mentioned disrespect, because when some of the teams arrived here, in particular Unitas Black, the LATAM team, it seemed like nobody wanted to wargame them. They didn't think they were worth the time. They wouldn't even give them the practice. Then when they got, bored, I think it happened, and they wargamed them and they lost like 5 times in a row to them, like, oh, you're actually a real team. And so I think the only way Method Triforce lose this is if they're using too much ego. They think they're just better outright, and they make mistakes, and they end up losing that way, because basically by the book they should lose this. But there's been so much overconfidence. They've definitely won twice in a row, obviously, so they can back it up. But yeah, on a tournament stage, you can't afford mistakes.
Even in the European regionals, just a month ago, we saw Method Triforce really underestimate. I believe they were called Blind Fate. I'm not sure on the team name, but they were playing Red Hunter Shaman, and this team actually managed to take down Method Triforce, and everybody was really shocked because this was one of the bottom-seeded teams. And then when we went and asked Method about this matchup, they just said that they play one comp. We kind of underestimated them. We didn't realize that they were actually this good at playing that comp. So it's kind of a similar story here with Unitas Black, because they are also one team that plays a few amount of comps, but they play them very well. I don't know if you guys managed to catch the LATAM qualifiers, but they've been stomping for almost every year now. And Rind is definitely one of those names that just keeps popping up here as well.
Yeah, so this is going to be a really interesting one to watch. And as you guys can see on the screen as well, you can go ahead and vote for your favorite team, who you think is going to end up winning this next series. You can put hashtag TRI, hashtag try in chat for Method Triforce, or hashtag UNI, hashtag Uni for Unitas Black. I'm really excited to see this next series. I think it's gonna play out really excitingly. We've always seen in the past, you were just talking about Unitas Black, Rind in particular on that team has always been someone who has, I don't want to throw anybody in the bus, but I want to say he's always had trouble finding other top-tier players from Latin America to be able to play with. And this year, it seems like the team that he's been able to put together with Shapus, Aiden, and Josito Jones, who, by the way, is not to be confused with Rosita Jones, who was on the team we were just watching. It seems like he's really managed to put together a team that actually has a really solid chance of making it super far this year. And, of course, with the way that we've redone the qualifying, the method of qualifying this year, bringing 12 teams instead of 8, that gave Latin America a direct shot into BlizzCon. So now we're finally getting to see Rind and his team matching up against one of the best teams from Europe, which we haven't really seen in a tournament before.
I mean, Rind has had some pretty decent tournament representation. He made it to BlizzCon back in Miss Pandaria. He had Infernion and Livin. He was playing the Fire God comp. He's made it to regionals multiple times. He's definitely a top-tier healer. He's usually now lately been paired with Shapus, and Shapus has also made it to the regional stage quite often, but he's had this one flaw. The one mistake for Shapus is that he's got nerves. He gets nervous on that stage. He starts thinking about making mistakes. He doesn't play as well as he does online or on ladder. And after maybe 2 years now of Shapus playing in these regional events, I really want to see him improve on that. I want to see solid play from him for this next series.
And it's a double-edged sword with the comp that they're playing with him having nerves. I hope you guys are ready. These are probably going to be very long matches, which is it's good and bad. It's good for Unitas because we know that Method Triforce hates long games. They want to get in, they want to execute their strategy, they want to do it flawless for 5 minutes, just get everything right, get the first setup, get the defenses out of the way, second setup, win. Unitas Black is going to be playing a very tanky, very long game comp. Probably Lock Shaman. We're going to see Lock Shaman Druid, with Rind healing them. Rind does an amazing job playing very, very careful, plays extremely far away, plays Vim and Vigor for extra healing. He stands so far back. And then, and so if Method Triforce has to just sit there and take that the entire time, they're going to have a higher chance of making mistakes.
Yep.
But then on the opposite side, if he has to play flawlessly for that long, that means if any one moment he gets nerves on the stage and doesn't execute well, play defensive, pushes in too far, and dies, I mean, can spell defeat for his entire team.
Yeah, and when you're playing against the world champions, the reigning world champions as well, I mean, if you're having nerves when you just play regionals or something, then this is definitely a super high pressure situation. So if Shapies can manage to overcome this, then it's definitely looking good for them moving forward to the rest of the tournament.
All right, so we are about to jump into a commercial break while these guys get set up. Real quick, I want to get predictions from you guys. How do you think this series is going to go?
I think it's going to be 3-0 Method Triforce, but I don't think it's going to be a landslide. Like every match is going to come down to that last moment that Method Triforce does something crazy and wins. They just have the experience. They've got the stacked roster this year and the wins behind their belt.
Yep.
If I vote with my brain, I vote Method Triforce. If I vote with my heart, because they're being really arrogant at the start of the tournament, if I vote with my heart, I'm just all the way for Latin America. So I'm giving it to Rind's team. I'm going to say it's 3-2 for Unitas.
All right.
3-1 Method. I think Latin America can pick up a game, but I think Method is really prepared. They faced a lot of good LSDs at home as well, so I think they have the experience and the tools necessary to win this setup. But I think Rind and the boys can pick up a game in deep dampening where they manage to do something really good, or Method maybe messes something up.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3-1.
All right. I'm gonna go with my brain and go Method as well. But as we've seen so many times over this tournament, anything can happen in this series. We'll get it going for you guys in just a moment after this short commercial break. We'll be right back.
Control from Volkovic. He's going to switch to Jelly. He baits it. Portal's right back onto Rubcup. Would like to maybe see him stun out of the portal. He's going to get it regardless. Chaos Bolt on Jelly means Eritros clotheslines him. They move in for a double leg sweep. Suddenly Panda Global on the back foot once again, blowing all of their defensive arsenal to stay alive. If Grumble can find another opportunity like that within the next minute, Rubcup with a nice war stomp, but doesn't manage to land the clone. Voltarius trinket out to kick the clone and now paralyze him. Eritros, though, is the one in trouble. Full hex on Jim. Pummel onto Eritros. Rubcup moving into Cyclone at low HP, or maybe Cyclone Array. He doesn't have it. They life grip him, but that's not enough, and Wall is going to...
2017 World of Warcraft Arena World Championship is brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Me and my team won the past 2 BlizzCons. We won this year regionals with Blizzard. I feel like, as I said, is bringing like new motivation to the team, because after winning BlizzCon for 2 years, it's hard to keep the same motivation. My last words to my enemy is try your hardest and we'll see who wins.
All right, guys, welcome back to BlizzCon opening week here at the Blizzard Arena in Los Angeles. We're about to get underway with Method Triforce versus Unitas Black, but first, some additional introductions are in order. Of course, I am still Josh Allen, aka Lore. Haven't changed that too much just yet. But joining me now at the caster desk, we've got Elliot Venzel, aka Van Rookie. We've got Adrian, aka Healing Stat, and we also have down at the end. He made it to BlizzCon after all. We've got Chuck Dooland, aka Sea-Doo. How's it going, man?
It's going fantastic. It's really great to be here. I'm super excited to watch these matches so far. You know, nothing short but absolute epicness so far in these first 2 series, so I'm just hoping it continues.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to see a really, really epic series here as well. Obviously, we're going Method Triforce, the reigning champions, up against Unitas Black, the sort of like the love story team, I guess, coming out of Latin America. I think everyone wants to see them do well, but going up against Method Triforce, it's going to be difficult. And this is going to be interesting. We're going to actually take a look at, I can't believe we're going to say this, we're going to look at what Twitch chat thinks
of
this particular
Well, they can't get this one wrong.
They're normally right. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twitch
so
chat knows all.
We'll get that Twitch chat in here in just a second. I'm super excited to see how that turns out, even though I think I kind of know what direction that's going to lean. I think everybody kind of knows what direction that's going to lean, but we'll get that up here in just a second. Real quick from you guys, predictions. How do you think this is going to go?
Well, last year during predictions, at the end of the year, they had sort of a little poll you could go check out and see which casters got what right. And I was at the very bottom. I got them all wrong because I always rooted for the underdogs. This year, I'm going to try to play it a little bit smarter. I really feel like Method Triforce, they have the comps, they have the players to win. That being said, I think Unitas is more prepared than they have ever been before. They're looking really, really sharp. So if they play well, and I think Method makes a little bit of mistakes, they can definitely capitalize on that and pull out a win.
Yep. Healing Stat, how are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things for Unitas is they're not us, because Fabs was joking a little bit with me on the bus as we got here this morning, and he was saying he beat Sea-Doo in 2016 BlizzCon final. He beat me 2015 BlizzCon final. He beat Ven in 2010 BlizzCon final, and that's his 3 victories, actually. So he's really got the full repertoire here. Unitas, I think, will still struggle, though. I'm still going to go with Method, maybe 3-0 even.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't beaten me yet in a BlizzCon
That's
final.
true.
So... I mean, I've got
and you're
that
the true
going for
advocate
me.
of Arcane as well. So.
I'm the only one here who hasn't lost to Fabs. I just think that's worth
in
calling
a
out.
Final.
Yep.
Sea-Doo, how are you feeling about this?
Well, you know, being in their position, I definitely would not want to face Method Triforce in the first round. They are just a powerhouse team. You know, statistics prove it. They just win time and time again. Winning BlizzCon is basically their full-time job, and they take that job very seriously. So let's just say if the trend continues, I'm going to be standing next to Rin sometime in the future.
Nice, nice. So we do have our results in from Twitch chat. Drum roll, please. Oh, wow.
It's a lot of green. Yep.
So, okay, actually, thinking about it, obviously Method Triforce, they've got that star power on their side here. They've got that real sort of advantage being the back-to-back champions. The fact that 16% of people are thinking Unitas, actually, like...
That's actually amazing because every single caster said that Method wins. So you did the caster analysis, it'd be 100% Method, 0%.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
go Twitch chat.
As someone who, part of my day job is analyzing statistics and looking at like little percentages like that. So when 16% of people think something that you would expect 0% of people to say, that's actually pretty substantial. So I would say that that's actually a pretty favorable result for Unitas here.
Yeah, and one of the things I think, one of the people who might even be voting towards that was Novos, because we had the chance to catch up with some of these teams prior, and he was saying that this LATAM team, this LATAM roster, is actually on par with most of the North American and the European rosters. He really thinks that they're one of the strongest teams here. We've heard some people saying that they're looking stronger than perhaps China and Australia, although we saw a fantastic series out of China already today. So that really tests how good this team really could be.
All right, well, we will find out how this goes in just a few short seconds. The queue has been set, and we'll be getting into this game here very, very shortly. I'm just super excited for this. I cannot wait to see how this thing plays out.
Yeah, the first 2 series today were incredible. I expect this 3rd series to be no less. We are going to be jumping into the Grand Arena, Game 1 between Method Triforce and Unitas Black. Method Triforce actually bringing in the Mistweaver Monk. That's a little bit unexpected, the first time we've seen Mistweaver Monk in this tournament so far.
Yeah, the Way of the Crane, of course, does contribute a fair bit of damage to those cleave compositions. So we see a fair few of the European teams liking to bring that out. We've seen Rocket's Eclipse, also with Lian, who's been playing a lot of Mistweaver in the past. So it's going to be interesting to see how Botar does play with it. Of course, 0 Mistweaver Monks were played in any regional finals, so great to see it on the BlizzCon stage.
Yeah, I think you're right. This Way of the Crane is going to be very strong against the spread pressure coming in from Unitas. Shapus on that Demonology Warlock, Zeta on that Elemental Shaman, going to be looking to maybe stall out the game, just putting out as much spread pressure as possible, but Method looking to get aggressive very early on with that Incapacitate over onto Rind. Bloodlust has been popped. Stun over onto Rind as well. Shapus just tanking through this damage quite easily so far with that Iron Bar coming in from Rind.
Yeah, we see Botar didn't immediately pop the Way of the Crane, using it now on the stun from the Fell Lord. And this is something interesting, because we heard some teams saying that Unitas doesn't really run that Fell Lord. Shapus has opted for it in this matchup. Makes sense against the melee cleave, of course, since they will all be stacking up within that. He's zoning him them out, although he's trying to full fair onto the Rind. Relentless, he doesn't have a PvP trinket. Swepsy reconnects, but they can't get there with Blizzard and the Execute. He will survive for now.
Yeah, Unending Resolve still available for Shapus to get stunned up. Maybe a greedy play there, but Shapus realizing the situation, knowing that he had the ability to kite, avoid some of that melee damage, able to save that cooldown for a rainy day. Swapsy now taking a little bit of return damage with the full fear over onto Botar. Breaks though. He is caught up in all that cleave damage coming in from that Elemental Shaman and that Warlock, so they need to be careful when they get that CC on Botar not to break it. It's going to be very important for them to actually land a kill. Leg sweep into Incapacitate over onto Rind. Some pressure over onto Rind now with the stun over onto Shapus as well. Nice spread pressure coming in from Method at this point in the game.
Yeah, Rind actually was far away from Shapus' portal there, so he couldn't get any heals off when Shapus ported behind the pillar. He's able to connect some now. Is it going to be enough? Ironbark should keep them alive, but that was the pop once again from Triforce, and you can see Method are trying to be this aggressive team. They don't want to let Unitas draw the game out. They want to get in, tunnel down Shapus, and get this kill early.
Honestly, hats off to Method. It's working out very well for them so far. Swapsy having to use that Astral Shift, so defensive cooldown eaten through very early on. Shapus still getting lower and lower, though. Always has that Unending Resolve. Rind really has nothing left in terms of defenses. Every time Botar has that Wave the Crane up, that's when they're going to be able to get super aggressive, coming up for about 2 seconds for Botar. So you can expect a big push onto Shapus once again. Shapus' pet actually gets killed. Now Shapus is into the full stun. He's going to be very susceptible to this damage. Gates away, trying to get a resummon. He gets interrupted once again. Good job by Method slowing down that pet summon. Pummeled again. Shapus is in so much trouble at this point, trying to kite away. Finally, the Fellow is going to be dropped. He's trying to get that Felguard out. Gets interrupted 2 more times into the full fear onto Rind. He's playing Relentless. He has no trinket available. Shapus finally having to use that Unending Resolve, going to make him very tanky, but that was such a close call.
Yeah, he had to use it to even get the pet out. Such good interrupt rotation coming out of Method Triforce. That's what we expect from them, of course. They do need to be a little bit careful here. No Way of the Crane for about 10 seconds on Botar. That is a big healing cooldown when you do play this specialization on the Mistweaver. We can see, though, look at the mana. Botar definitely taking the lead in this one. Rind really struggling with the pressure from Triforce. If they can just keep this up, keep connecting over onto Shapus, you get the feeling they're going to win this game.
Yeah, Incapacitate over onto leg sweep over onto Rind. Barskin actually forced out there just from Botar, so that might be an opening for Method Triforce if they want to get aggressive onto Rind a little bit later on, but it looks like Shapus still the target of choice. No Unending Resolve, no Ironbark available. Going to be tanking through this Way of the Crane damage the best he can. Trying to kite away from his fort a little bit into the middle of the map. Finally gets that Felguard out once again. Shapus is doing a good job kiting. He's always running away from his fort so he can get that distance when he needs it, but it gets bursted down huge. Bloodlust almost out, but they don't even need it. Shapus barely surviving at 5% HP. Gates away, huge heal coming in from Rind, but Rind's mana is not looking good at this point in the game.
Yeah, clutch plays coming in from Shapus there, and I think this is one of the things we really can credit Unitas for. A lot of the teams were saying it, the defensive play is on point. Shapus and Rind, they've been the superstars of the LATAM region for a good 2 years now. They're playing together. There's great synergy with the portal, with the healing, but Rind is out of mana. The next Bloodlust will be popped now by Swapsy. No defensive for this. Ironbark comes up just in time. Might keep him alive Fell Lord as well. They're trying to cut through it. They have the Way of the Crane. They have the tools. The Shapers survives.
Look at Rin just spamming out heal over heal. Healing touch, regrowth coming in over and over. He's almost completely tapped on mana. This is not looking good for Unitas. It doesn't look like they can find any sort of counter pressure at this point of the game. Revival coming up for Botar very soon, so that's going to be a nice defensive. Way of the Crane coming up in 20 seconds. If Method can just hold on and keep up this pressure, the next Way of the Crane Bloodlust could be the end. Full Fear over on the Rin. Shapus having to port away, so not going to have that available for the next time that Way of the Crane is up. He's going to have to tank through this damage. Hopefully he has Fell Lord, something available for that. Doesn't look like he does. Getting lower and lower. Revival going to be used. Botar wanting to stabilize his team's HP so they can push in for this final assault. Stun over onto Rind. Rind, no Barkskin, no Unending Resolve. Shapus in so much trouble. Botar still has that Way of the Crane, just holding on to it. Maybe looking to pair that with that Bloodlust coming up very shortly for Swapsy. That's Incapacitate over onto Rind. Shapus needs to somehow survive. He ports away. Gates as well, but taken down mid-gateway. Method Triforce from start to finish, slaying Unitas.
Yeah, the mid-air execute coming out of Blizzo there at the end. It looked like an odd graphic, right? Because he was flying through the air and then he just charged in, got the execute. Blizzo really been one of the MVPs on this Method roster.
He basically just held his sword out
just like swinging through the sky.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly. Method Triforce really showing why they are the reigning champions right there in that game. They looked like they were so much in control throughout that entire game. And let's talk about Blizzo for just a second. He's sort of the fourth arm of Method Triforce, has been the one that hasn't been on this team in the past. We've seen Swapsy, Botar, and Fabs playing together so many times in the past and always doing so well. In fact, this will be the 5th BlizzCon for all 3 of those guys, I believe, except for Blizzo, who's their new pickup. But you can see in that last match just how valuable of a pickup that's actually been.
Yeah, I think there might have been a question if Blizzo can perform in these tournaments, but that was very quickly answered at regionals. I feel like he was the MVP of this roster, performing excellently throughout that entire tournament, and now in this first game doing an excellent job as well.
Yeah, and Blizzo is actually someone they wanted for a while. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it next year, and he's going right in with the Method Triforce fashion. He's got 1 tournament, he's got 1 win. He's just knocking them down just like the rest of them, so he is a perfect fit.
Yeah, and I think like one of the other things to note about him is he's been involved in every single win they've had since they brought him on the roster. There's been 2 or 3 times they've tried other compositions without him. For example, Warlock Death Knight, I think we saw from them once, but every single time they've won, Blizzo's been there, and almost always, I think 96% of his games in the Cups were on that warrior, and we could see why there. He stopped Rin getting the drinks when needed. He was able to get the execute at the end, which is something that some warriors, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how Fabs, he always ends up on the team that wins BlizzCon, but he doesn't always play that much. I believe it was 2 years ago he won BlizzCon. He was the first person to have won 2 BlizzCons, but he didn't actually play a game. It was either 2 years ago or last year, something like that. I don't remember exactly how that timeline of that shaped out. Now this again, Fab sitting out obviously for that first game. There's still plenty of BlizzCon left to go. We're gonna see if he ends up coming in a little bit later. But he's been playing Warlock and Rogue, which you can see this turbo cleave that they came out with. That works so well. Why not just stick with it? We do actually have some replays that we can take a look at. Chuck, if you want to walk us through those.
Absolutely. And I got to say, Method Triforce was definitely expecting this LSD, so they definitely knew what they were going up against. And they picked this Mistweaver Turbo knowing they were going to destroy Shapus, basically. And Swapsy does not hesitate, basically comes off the mount with the Bloodlust here, trying to get so much initial pressure, as well as Botar trying to move in with that Way of the Crane to do additional damage. And, you know, Shapus and Rin doing an excellent job surviving all game. But, you know, the question they have to ask themselves is, how do you win? They're constantly kiting, they're constantly getting away, but they're actually not getting that counter pressure to, you know, kind of force them off them. So Method Triforce is in the driver's seat the entire time here, and they did such a good job locking Shapus down when his pet died that he's actually he's forced to use that Unending Resolve to not be interrupted on the cast to get that pet out, and that is absolutely crucial to end up getting the kill later on in this game. So excellent job by Method Triforce, not overlapping those interrupts and locking down Shapus in a really crucial moment. And here we have Shapus just barely sneaking away, Rin getting in that full in cap, and Shapus once again doing an excellent job kiting, followed up by the capacitor stun. So excellent job by Swapsy, and Shapus just barely getting away with his life, doing this Botar gate here at 2%, making sure Botar knows exactly how this feels, kind of repping me on that one. But Shapus is doing an excellent job kiting, but unfortunately it's just not enough. They are constantly getting the pressure. They're just connecting on him the entire time. They get Shapus in that full stun there, followed with the in cap on Rin, who's actually not playing the trinket, even though I do think that's a good situation. It's not enough to reduce that CC, and Shapus goes down right there.
Yeah, very, very well played there by Method Triforce, constantly putting Shapus under pressure, which does now mean it's going to be Unitas Black's map pick as well as counter comp pick. So I believe we're actually heading right into the draft, and there we go. They're actually going to go for Tolvaron Arena. So what does that mean to you guys?
Well, it's a bigger map when you're playing these wizard setups, having the elemental shaman, the demonology warlock. You're going to be able to kite a lot easier, sit in the open. It's going to expose both Blizzo and Swapsy if they do decide to play with that same composition. But it's scary. Like CD said, it didn't seem like Unitas really could get any sort of counter pressure the entire game. Method coming very well prepared for this tournament with that Mistweaver Monk seems to be the perfect pick in this situation. That's what these guys are known for. They always have a comp, they always have the answer, and they're able to execute with it. That's why they picked up game number 1 so easily.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the really interesting things that we talked about at the start of the game. It was that Mistweaver Monk. We didn't see it a single time in any of the regional championships, and a lot of teams weren't necessarily practicing it for BlizzCon either. We've seen a couple starting to pick it up now, but it just fit so perfectly into the composition. The additional damage from the Way of the Crane was enough to topple some of those situations, but also just the fact that Botar is so mobile, he was able to get the in-cap into the leg sweep on the healer Rind, and then he was able to get the damage anyway. The contribution from him was so huge in that game.
So yeah, they're going to go with that same composition again. The Turbo Cleave with the Mistweaver. Like you say, that Way of the Crane, for people who are less familiar with Mistweaver, it actually works out very similarly to the Avenging Crusader that the Holy Paladin has. You sort of do damage to do healing with it. And so we're seeing Mistweavers just starting to pick that up and start playing that a lot more regularly. That's one of the most interesting talent rows, I think, of the game right now, because they have to choose between that or the Soothing Mist option as well. There's a third one in that, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a third one in that row that's really valuable too.
The instant surge, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
8-second instant surge. Another thing you might have noticed in that game is Botar making the swaps over onto Rin to incapacitate the leg sweep, and then he would just damage him. The reason he does that is to knock off that Vim, making it even more difficult for him to actually heal up Shapus during that game, losing that 20% additional healing from Vim. So I think it's an intelligent decision. It looks like Unitas is going to be locking in the same composition. Ellie Shaman, Demonology Warlock, Resto Druid, Method, same composition as well. I mean, what do we think about this map? Do you feel like this map is going to be enough of an advantage for Unitas to pull out a victory in game number 2?
I have to say that this comp is probably a mistake, but in the same sense, I don't know if they have a better option. They're trying to go with their best map, with their best comp. I don't know if it's going to be enough. One of the things to note about Way of the Crane is really, really good mana efficiency. So even though they do want to play that dampening game,
that's actually a good point.
Oh yeah, we over to the elemental Swapsy. So they're going with this Thunder Cleave, which is a composition we've seen already played by 2 teams in the matchup so far. So that's a very interesting blind pick here. Maybe they were scared of something coming out of the other team.
I think that's them just capitalizing on the map. You know, you're going to pick a bigger map. Okay, then we'll play Elemental Shaman. I feel like this composition is still really strong, has a lot of the added benefits, you know, the same kind of thing as Turbo Cleave, except now you have an Elemental Shaman, you have that range damage, so Unitas not going to be able to capitalize on that huge map. Playing in the open isn't necessarily going to benefit them that much.
So I think one thing that one player we didn't talk about too much in that last game, because we didn't really see too much of him, was Hisido playing that Elemental Shaman. He was positioning himself quite well between the healer and the melee DPS, but when Botar pushes in, he's exposed. He's in line of sight. They can get the crowd control. We saw a couple of times Shapus trying to get the fear on that Way of the Crane, but they were breaking it with AoE damage. I'd really like to see them solo focus some hexes, some fears onto that healer and try and negate the Way of the Crane, which we've been talking so much about.
I think another thing they could have capitalized on was not breaking Hex. There's no decurse, so if you really want to play for that dampening game, you got to stick with your strategy and maybe just try and throw some CC out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing the Elemental Shaman in patch 7.3 suddenly having this resurgence again. It's like we're even seeing like the LSD compositions start coming back into play. Something that everyone, you know, 4 months ago would be like, you would never ever play that whatsoever. But now we're seeing this Elemental Shaman coming back in, which is in turn allowing the Warlock to come back in a little bit more often. So we're going to see if Unitas with this LSD here, if they're able to take down the Thunder Cleave of Method Triforce. I do really like that subtle switch from it. Well, it's not that subtle really. The switch from the Elemental Shaman or the Enhancement Shaman to the Elemental Shaman, because it is Tolvaron, like you guys were saying. The fact that it is on such a wide spread out map. If you have both the Arms Warrior they have a little bit of extra mobility. They can move around pretty easily. The Enhancement Shaman, sure, you've got like Gust of Wind, but it's a little bit easier to lock down an Enhancement Shaman behind a pillar and out of line of sight of the healer and be able to get a quick kill on them there if you catch them without Astral Shift or something. So I like that switch to the Elemental. It's going to allow them to stand back a little bit more and play defensively if they want to.
Yeah, I think so. And I think one of the things, like, again, we were talking to Method forever prepared. They were playing against Enjoy Legion a lot, expecting those fell cleave kind of swaps from the LSD, and it's definitely dangerous if you're caught behind this double melee on a pillar like Tolvaron.
Yep, game number 2 about to start. Method Triforce up 1-0 right now. We'll have to see if Swapsy can bring it on that Elemental Shaman. Previous series today, we saw that Elemental Shaman being so strong. The amount of damage it can put out is crazy. Shapus is going to be under fire constantly, I expect. Anytime Botar pushes in with that Way of the Crane, that's when Unitas is going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and it's kind of a common theme, right? Whenever you're playing a Warlock in PvP, specifically Arena, you get very frustrated by the Warriors. They have a lot of lockdown. They have the Spell Reflect, the Pummel, the Stun. We can actually see a bit of damage over onto Rin, but the main focus, of course, will be Shapers. They already forced the Iron Bark. Maybe even going to be able to force that Unending Resolve. We can see so many cooldowns being forced. Swapsy is soloing Rind, taking off that Vim and Vigor and forcing the Bark Skin.
Method Triforce playing so aggressive early on. Blizzo throwing out that Fear into the Incapacitate, into the Leg Sweep immediately. Like you said, they're able to force basically every single defensive cooldown. A little bit of damage over on the Blizzo right now with the bash over on a Botar. He's going to use that human racial to get out of that. Still trying to pressure down Rin the best he can. Full Incapacitate over on the Rin. Now Method Triforce looking to get aggressive once again over onto Shapus, who's getting bursted down quite low, down to around 40% HP right now. Blizzo just really tearing in. That's going to be Thorns tossed out by Rin, so a little bit of reflected damage over onto Blizzo. He needs to be careful that he doesn't hit into that too much. Way of the Crane is available for Botar though, so he should be able to restabilize his HP as soon as they decide to get aggressive with that. And you can see the second that he pushes in, gets out that damage, the entire team of Method Triforce stabilizes. Rin getting a little bit lower and lower. Able to displace away though, he should be safe, but he might have left Shapus far behind. Shapus in the middle of the map right now, almost in the execute range. Iron Bark was tossed out. That might be enough to keep him alive, but so much damage coming from Blizzo as well as Swapsy. This pressure is just insane coming in from Method Triforce. Way the Crane is down right now. Hopefully Unitas can stabilize at this point of the game, but they really just can't seem to get anything going.
Yeah, this is all going wrong for Unitas. They're really struggling to get any pressure. Shapus is being tunneled down. Feels like he can die at any moment. It's hard to even get a point off because every single time we try and say something, it's almost execute range. You can see the Fear now over onto Rin. They're trying to get this kill. And Unitas, they came into this competition so confident, but they're going up against the Juggernauts, the European champions, the defending world champions. And it looks like they're just getting outclassed in this game.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, Method Triforce, this is the kind of the comp that they won BlizzCon with the first time. That Warrior with that Shaman, whether it's Enhancement, Elemental, they just know how to turn up that heat, get up the CC they need to, play defensive when they need to, and this is looking so bad for Unitas. But they have sort of stabilized at this point of the game. No Iron Bark available. It's going to be up in 5 seconds for Rin, so that should be the defensive cooldown that he needs. But Shapus having to resummon his pet over and over. Such a nightmare situation for him to be in. If he's not dead, his pet is, and then he just has to focus on more defense, summoning out that pet. Luckily for him, he gets it out. Axe toss over onto Swapsy. This is the first offensive push we've seen from Unitas. Swapsy just line of sighting though, getting bursted down. Huge though. Shapus finally able to get out some of that damage. Nice war banner coming in from Blizzo though. Able to free up Botar a little bit in that situation so he can get those heals out onto Swapsy when he needs to. Now big pressure over onto Shapus once again with the Incapacitate leg sweep over onto Rind. But Rind pre-Iron Barks it. Very nicely done by Rin. That might be the only reason that Shapus is alive at this point in the game, but that Method able to force out that defensive cooldown. Unending Resolve still available for Shapus, so that's going to be very important for him to survive the next go.
Yeah, and once again you can see Way of the Crane being used onto Rin to lower his health so that he's out of Vim and Vigor range, which means of course he does lose the 20% healing bonus from that, so well played by Botar. But we do have to once again give a bit of credit here to Shapus and Rind. If they can show these signs of life, combining that Thou kills with the Bash Cyclone from Rind, they can potentially get a kill onto Swapsy, but Blizzo has been on point this entire tournament as well as the European regionals, the entire year in fact, with those war banners, with those interrupts. He's just such a nuisance to play against.
Yeah, Method doing such a good job in this game, targeting down Rind, getting him below that 80% HP threshold like we talked about, and that really reduces his healing, making it so difficult to actually top Shapus off. Incapacitate, leg sweep onto Rind once again. Botar targeting him down, getting out that damage when he needs it. Botar just all over the map right now with that Way of the Crane, putting out pressure onto everyone. You can see Unitas all getting rotted down. Iron Bark tossed out once again by Rind, trying to stabilize, but Method Triforce in the driver's seat, just everyone at 100% HP. Nice burst over onto Blizzo though, gets caught in the stun. That Dive of the Sword is going to be forced out, preventing some of this incoming damage. Now the fire gets turned over onto Shapus. Unending Resolve has been used. He's got in the middle of the map right now, no gateway available. Going to be spamming out those fears. Incapacitate over onto Rin. Can Shapus survive? No Iron Bark available, no Unending Resolve as that fades. His pet is actually dead as well. He gets pummeled. Nice pummel by Blizzo. A lot of pressure from Method right now. Can Shapus survive? This is the same situation we saw last game, but now he doesn't have that Unending Resolve. Finally able to get out that pet, but is it too late? Rin in a good position right now, able to just spam out those heals, but his mana is not looking too good at this point of the game. We're not even at dampening, already down to around 25% mana.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to swap up their strategy a bit more, hit Blizzo. We saw Hosido killing some of those war banners, trying to get some Cyclones over onto Botar, expose him for that Way of the Crane. It's something we talked about at the start of the game. If they can get those Cyclones, it's going to be very impactful, but on the flip side, Rind almost out of mana there. On a clock, this team, of course, the Mortal Strike reducing the healing from Blizzo means that Shapus is falling further and further behind. We see Ironbark, we see Barkskin, all these cooldowns being traded out by Rind, but he is dropping lower and lower on mana. They need to get this set up soon if they are going to take down Triforce.
Yeah, Swapsy has Stormkeeper up as well, so if you can get that off and they can get a nice setup over onto Shapus, this could be good night for Unitas. At the Triforce still, everyone 100% HP at this point of the game. Botars has that Way of the Crane up in another 3 seconds. That's when they're going to be able to get super aggressive. But like you said, Unitas has been doing a good job so far getting that CC out. Rin getting swapped to right now. No Barskin available, but he doesn't look like he's in too much trouble. Met the Triforce turning their attention over onto Shapus once again, whose pet is dead again. This is just so difficult for Rin to heal through the spread pressure. If they can interrupt this Felguard, Incapacitate coming in from Botar, now into an Earthquake stun and a pummel. Shapus just having such a hard time getting out this pet. Gets interrupted once again with that leg sweep, which is going to be increasing the amount of damage that he takes. Wind sheared as well. Cast after cast. Met the Triforce playing this out so well. Finally, full bash over onto Botar. Blizzo getting a little bit low. Can they get the counter kill? Shapus into execute range. Taken down. Met the Triforce from start to finish. Although Unitas had a couple moments in that game where it looked like they could win. Met the Triforce just dominating.
Yeah, I think, like you say, a few signs of life from Unitas. I like to see that, of course. The LATAM teams in the past, we've seen them perhaps getting really kind of destroyed in some of these tournaments. So they're definitely doing a great job to take the #1 team in this entire competition to those final moments.
Yeah, definitely. I want to call out something that was awesome that I noticed at the end of that one as well, which was even though Shapus died, because Blizzo was still relatively low, even though Shapus was dead at that point, Botar went ahead and put the Life Cocoon on Blizzo just to make sure that they were able to keep that kill. There was a slight possibility of a cross kill there if he hadn't, and it's easy in those sorts of moments. You get super. It's easy for someone who isn't Botar in those sorts of moments.
To go orange marmalade.
Yeah, exactly. You get really excited and you're like, yeah, we did it, guys. And you like stand up, hands off keyboard, and he's like, no, hang on, we still do have to actually win this game, and they were able to take that one out. It's looking really, I'm going to say it's looking pretty good for Method Triforce right now.
I wonder if we should maybe rename them to Method Synergy, because some of the moments where they kill that pet and then they just rotate interrupt after interrupt, I mean, they have like 10, right? And they never overlap them, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Unitas was looking really good in that game, and although they were kind of getting close to getting some kills, they were getting some pressure, it almost feels like they have to give up that defensive positioning to do so. So even though they're doing damage, they're also taking quite a bit, and they got what they wanted with the bigger map. The game definitely lasted a little bit longer. Obviously, it wasn't the same with the Enhance as the Ellie, but that's just a heads-up move from a really veteran team, you know, making that swap, knowing the big map, knowing exactly what's coming. So you really can't throw Method Triforce a curveball. They are prepared for every single situation.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason they've done so well in every tournament in the past, like, 5 years, basically. We do have some replays that we're going to take a look at as well. Chuck, if you want to go ahead and walk us through what we're going to take a look at here.
For sure. Basically, what we're seeing in this game is just really clean, crisp setups from Method Triforce, getting that full CC out onto Rin immediately, doing the full fear, into the full incapacitate, into the full leg sweep. They actually did multiple times this game, which is just causing so much pressure. But not only that, Botar actually decides to hit Rind after that to force off that Vim that the casters were talking about over and over. So they're getting that spread pressure by knocking down Shapus really low, but also making Rin do 20% less healing. So just Method Triforce completely on top of their game. Shapus just barely squeezing away, and you could actually see they try and capitalize on that pressure, forcing Rin to also Barkskin and Tranquility to have to top his team. So and like I was saying earlier, Unitas is actually getting some pressure. You see Blizzo getting the parry out there. Botar actually has to trinket, but you see the exchange that they're taking. Even though they're doing damage, they're also taking an absolute insane amount of damage, and they actually forced that unending resolve from Shapus once again, even though they were trying to be offensive there. So it's one of these things where it really just feels like they can't win, and at this point they have to be asking themselves, you know, when are they going to have to swap comps? Unfortunately for them, I don't think they have one. And right here, as we saw the kill once again, they had a lot of pressure on Blizzo. They're doing a good job getting the CC, but they're just taking too much damage, and Blizzo knows when you're in Botar's hands, you are absolutely safe. He doesn't need to worry about anything. So Shapus once again goes down.
Yeah, that was after like a chain of him trying to summon his Felguard like 12 times in a row and getting interrupted every single time as well. One thing that I do want to give a quick clarification on, maybe for anybody who's at home who's a little bit less familiar with how the honor talents work. We've talked a lot about Vim and Vigor and how it's important to put a little bit of extra damage onto the healer from time to time. Can you guys explain exactly how that honor talent works and why that's so important?
Yeah.
Oh, no, go for it.
Vim and Vigor is just a really, difficult situation as a healer. You have Defender, which is basically going to happen the entire time you get the 20% haste, or you go for the greedy play, which is the 20% healing. Botar, being the amazing healer that he is, he knows exactly how to counteract that play. Even though his DPS are not attacking him, he knows how to take advantage of a situation where he knows that he can knock that off. So being able to take the Druid out of 80%, I think you have to be above 80% to have that 20% increased healing. He knows exactly what he needs to do to reduce that healing, and it actually matters so much.
Yeah, and so that's why it was so important with just that little. I don't even think he had Crane active at that moment in time. It was just a little bit of extra damage that he threw out onto Rin there to just dip him just below that 80% health and basically reduce his healing. But it's like a mortal strike for the entire team, basically, at that point, if you think about it. So we are going to take a real quick commercial break, guys, but we will be right back with Game 3 between Method Triforce and Unitas Black. Stick around.
2017 World of Warcraft Arena World Championship is brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Welcome back, everybody. We are in the middle of this series between Method Triforce and Unitas Black. Method Triforce currently up 2-0, looking to close this out with a nice quick 3-0. I think that's really what they're after here, because they do not like if my Twitter feed is any particular indication, they do not like dampening games. And so far, so good. They've been doing really, really well against Unitas Black here. But Unitas Black showing some signs of life in that last game. And now coming into here on Ashermane's Fall, looks like the same compositions once again. How do you guys feel about this?
I feel like Unitas is in a world of trouble at this point. I feel like the CC coming in from Method with the fears that incapacitates the leg sweeps, it's too much for Rin to really handle. Maybe he could switch off that Vim and that will be enough to give him the additional healing he needs, but it just seems like he can't heal Shapus and the pet at the same time, and that's really where their team falls behind. Shapus having to constantly worry about that resummon, and eventually once Swapsy and Blizzo were able to get their interrupts rolling on that pet summon, it just seems like it's over for Unitas.
Yeah, and I think the star players on Unitas so far in this series have really been Rind and Shapus. When they have looked close to a kill, it's been those guys comboing with the Foul Lord, with the kind of cyclones coming out of Rind. I wouldn't have minded seeing Aiden come out in this series. We know he's available on the Warrior, on the Assassination Rogue. Those can both provide a lot of offensive utility for the team. They are sticking with the LSD, though, of course. This is still a reasonably well-rounded composition.
Yeah, I definitely think the LSD is not the best matchup, but I also think they don't have many other options, so they're just kind of, not in a very good position at the moment.
Yeah, and oftentimes the comp that you're most comfortable with is just as good as going with the counter comp, depending on how comfortable you are with playing other compositions. And like you guys were saying, we've seen Rind and Shapus really playing well together on here. So as we go into this Game 3 on Ashermane's Fall, we'll have to see if Unitas Black, if they have the magic they need to come back into this series, or if Method with the Triforce is going to close this out.
What do you feel like, what strategy does Unitas really have to implement in game number 3 to actually pull out a victory here?
I think one of the things that we saw starting to work for Unitas was when they started swapping over onto Blizzo a little bit. Of course, Elemental Shamans, which Swapsy is playing right now, are known for being able to kind of keep their distance. They have a fair few ways of getting out of sticky situations, whereas Blizzo, they can catch him in battle stance maybe. He's trying to play very aggressive. Like Josh was saying, they really try to avoid dampening. They want to get the early kills. Maybe they can catch him off guard.
Yeah, same thing. Incapacitate into leg sweep over on a Rind. Bark Skin as well as that Iron Bark already forced out. It's a nice pre-Iron Bark though onto Shapus, preventing a lot of that incoming burst. And Rind actually throwing out that Bark Skin just so he doesn't drop out of that Vim range. He knows he's not going to be dying. He just wants to prevent Botar from basically soloing off that huge healing increase. Shapus getting lower and lower though. He might have to port away at this point in the game. Dalkeel's over on the Blizzo. Not a lot of pressure though. It didn't seem to connect. Shapus still getting lower and lower. Might have to actually port away at this point in the game. Rind getting incapacitated. Shapus in a lot of trouble trying to get out that fear. Blizzo taking a lot of damage though. That's going to be the life cocoon coming in from Botar. Nicely done by Unitas.
Yeah, I actually like the bark skin from Rind. Of course, he can trade it basically equally with the Way of the Crane, only a few seconds difference between those two cooldowns. And one of the weaknesses of Turbo Cleave is, unlike the Demon Hunters, unlike the Windwalkers, they're not very mobile. So if Rind is playing max range, as you can see he is, it's very hard for them to swap over to him and punish that bark skin.
Yeah, Hazita actually had a nice hex as well, slowing down Swapsy. So if he can consistently get those hexes out, but it might not matter. Shape is still in the middle of the map right now. That's the Unending Resolve with the full fear on to Rind. Ironbark and Unending Resolve have been stacked up. Stormkeeper available for Swapsy. Shapus needs to survive. This is a dire situation. Method looking to close out the series 3-0. Shapus almost into execute range with a nice stun on the Blizzo, but the second that fades, Blizzo connects that execute, and that is it. Method Triforce dominating their first series.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Unitas later in this tournament, though. Of course, they are not eliminated yet. We are playing double elimination effectively in these groups. Unitas have been definitely challenging other teams, but Method Triforce were just a little bit too strong.
Yeah, I really feel like they got their worst team first. I mean, anyone going up against Method Triforce, they make look like fools. So
yeah, they just win everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really rough to have that be your first game to actually play. So that does mean that Method Triforce, we will be seeing them on the stage at BlizzCon itself. They will be moving on. Unitas Black, of course, they are not out of it, like you were just saying. They do still have an opportunity to come back, but they're definitely sort of up against it now at this point.
I would also like to point out that Unitas, by all means, did not play bad. They were actually playing a pretty good game, but unfortunately for them, it just looked like they were out-comped, and that's going to happen when you're fighting against Method Triforce, you know? They have everything. You know, you really you can't pick better comps than them, so you just have to kind of outplay them, and that's that's not easy to do, especially, some of them are, new to BlizzCon. They don't have any experience on the main stage. To be in a situation like this as the first series, it's just not easy.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking about, especially like Rind and Shapus, like the way that they're able to play with each other. There were a few moments we even saw like just little things like the positioning. It's easy to notice situations where Shapus is in a lot of trouble. He demonic gateways and then uses demonic circle and then uses the gateway. And when he does that, Rind is already in position far away, but in line of sight to be able to heal him, knowing that, okay, Shapus is going to do exactly this. And that's the sort of thing that it's tough to communicate in the amount of time that needs to happen. It's something that you just sort of need to know. Like, I am the healer, and I know that my Warlock is about to do exactly this because I know that it's available to him.
That's just something that just comes with tons and tons of games together. They have a lot of experience together, and once again, they really did play well together.
Yeah. So we do have a few replays to take a look at. And Chuck, if you want to walk us through these once again here.
Absolutely. I mean, the score kind of tells the tale of this series. Basically, Method Triforce was in the driver's seat the entire game. They started off with these big openers, just putting them so far behind so early on, and that's not a position you want to be in at the very start of the game. And it's the play style that you want to have if you are in a tournament. You want to be able to make people make decisions where, do we overuse cooldowns? Do we underuse cooldowns? You want to make them really feel uncomfortable. There's a lot on the line here, and those decisions with that much pressure, it's not easy to do. And Method Triforce does it so well, and something that Blizzo did immediately here that they weren't actually expecting was they stopped that gateway, and that kind of made this game a little bit shorter. As you noticed, Shapus went down a lot earlier. Not having that gateway to get away is something that's really, really important. So him leaping in there was a great play by him, and unfortunately, Josita couldn't actually get the roots on him, which is normally how you stop that. But they get this early initial pressure with a CC on Rin, and they actually once again damage Rin. They're just jumping back and forth between Rin and Shapus, making sure that Vim's off, and they're getting so much pressure out, and they're not taking any. So at this point, it almost looks like they're hitting target dummies. There's nothing Unitas can actually do. The full fear on Rin there, almost killing Shapus through the unending resolve. I believe he actually gets picked up here a little bit with the Iron Bark, and they are just crushing through it, and it almost looks like Ellie was actually a better decision than the Enhanced throughout this whole series. So I think that's something that Method Triforce actually learned, and this pressure is just unhealable. Rin's doing a fantastic job, but he just cannot keep him alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well played by Method Triforce. Of course, well played by Unitas Black as well. And we do have Jackson down on the stage for a winner's interview, with Swapsy.
Thank you so much, Josh. We are standing by with Swapsy, chatting him up a little bit. It's good to have the two-time returning champ here. You guys had a pretty commanding performance right there. It seemed like everything was going according to plans. Is that your impression of that matchup?
We wargamed the Brazilian team previously, and they actually farmed us, so we didn't have a positive win-loss going into the match. I also think they are one of the hardest teams we can possibly face in our group. I would have rather faced like a team from Europe or maybe an A, because it's easier to prepare for them. You can see them on stream, you face them on ladder. The Brazilian team is a bit of a wild card, and they actually played really well, so it was a hard match.
Yeah, so even though you haven't maybe practiced against that composition, you guys definitely seemed in command. And that's one of the things about being the two-time returning champ, as we mentioned, that we ask you a lot. Does that add to your confidence as a team, or does maybe the pressure of having to maybe repeat once again kind of hold you guys back a little bit?
I think it doesn't really affect us. Like going into the tournament, we have the unique opportunity to go for a third win in a row, which would be like super cool to get. So we're just here, try our best, and maybe make it work somehow.
Yeah, judging from that first match, you guys are definitely firing on all cylinders and definitely have that synergy that we've seen from you guys in the past. Is that your impression? Some teams have been a little bit nervous, maybe a little bit shaky in their starting games, but you guys look solid. How are you guys feeling?
It was our first series now. So the first series, you kind of need to get into it, and you're always a bit more nervous than usual. You need to taste some blood until you really get into it and get into your groove until, yeah.
Yeah, well, first blood is definitely in your favor right there, and looking forward to seeing you guys continue to make progress and progress towards the championship once again this year. But we're going to keep this tournament moving as well. Let's go ahead and send it back to the desk and keep it rolling.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jackson. Always good to hear from Method Triforce as well. We were talking a little bit before you guys came on. I was talking with the other guys, and we were talking about how some of the teams had sort of felt a little bit disrespected by Method Triforce earlier. Like in the war games earlier on, they were like, no, it's not worth our time. We're not gonna war game. But clearly not showing that here. Swapsy talking about how Unitas played super well and how That was like the team that they were the most worried to go up against. And you guys even saw, like, right after they won, they went over and shook everybody's hand. So always good to see some good sportsmanship coming out from these teams.
Well, that's the thing about Method Triforce is they always figure it out. They always figure out a comp that works against what their opponents have to bring. I feel like that was Unitas's big strength going into this tournament, is that they had this composition that not a lot of people are playing, the Demonology with that Elemental Shaman and the Shadow Priest with that Demonology Warlock. But now that they've maybe given teams a lot of practice, a lot of war games, maybe they kind of shot themselves in the foot by doing that.
I think like one of the really cool things there is, I mean, you talk about Method, they're one of the, well, they are probably in many people's eyes the strongest team here. They're the 2-time champions. They have the opportunity to be incredibly egotistical, but actually a nice humble interview there from Swapsy, really honest and saying like, hey, this team actually played really well. And we saw signs of that. We looked when we were breaking it down in some of those moments, how well this team really did play both defensively and sometimes offensively. So we'll have to see if they can sharpen that up a little bit against some of the other slightly weaker opposition in the competition.
Yeah, I definitely think Method Triforce have their work cut out for them. I mean, if you're coming to this tournament and you've not prepared to beat that team, you know, you're probably not going to win. They have a big target on their back. They're going for the 3P. People know who they are. They are going to prepare for that team. So, you know, Swapsy saying that was one of their hardest matchups kind of, you know, it makes me a little curious because that was a 3-0. So if they 3-0'd what they thought was their hardest matchup, I kind of want to see what the rest of this tournament's going to look like for them.
Yeah, definitely. And we've definitely seen a lot of surprises in the past as well, where a team that you wouldn't necessarily expect to come out with something like we saw, what was it, Method Synergy coming out with a double Demon Hunter at North American Regionals that then nobody could figure out because it was just this crazy composition that they just really hadn't had any practice against before. So Method Triforce should definitely not feel too safe at this point because, like you said, everyone's going to be planning to what happens when we run into Triforce.